Hi guys, today we're going to talk about something that I personally feel very related to, and that's the state of Hollywood. I grew up absolutely in love with film, in love with television and comic books. I love the art of storytelling and how amazing it was when you could go and just escape from reality, or as they call it, suspension of disbelief, and just see amazing things on screen for an hour and a half to 2 hours at a time, telling stories of wonder, fantasy, amazement, sci-fi. Any genre you can think of, I would consume. As I grew up, I studied film history, learned about the origins of film. I studied filmmaking, and for a short period of time, I worked in home entertainment. So I was more and more engaged with the industry. I was excited, and as still a fan, I was excited about the summer releases, what movies were coming out, what was coming up next for my favorite characters, and what studios were making the next amazing thing that I was, waiting to go see. Could not get there soon enough to go see. Opening weekend go see. And unfortunately, in the last 5-6 years, that's all changed. I can't recall the last 3 movies I was excited to go see in theaters. And I don't think I speak from a single perspective, but I think it shows in the box office revenue. People just aren't excited about films anymore. And it has nothing to do with there's no films out there. There's no compelling films out there. There's no films that people want to go see, that people say, okay, Friday night, this releases, we're going to go there and get tickets. And you get bummed out when you get there and it's already sold out, or there's a line to get into the theater. That's no longer a concern. You can walk in at 5 minutes before the movie and there's probably going to be tons of seats. Why is that? Because the movies no longer tell a story. They no longer express a vision. There's no more, compellingness to want fans to come see it. Fans have been alienated in a lot of senses. As a comic book fan, as a Marvel fan, as a DC fan, what they've done to the stories no longer relates to me. I don't feel like, oh, I'm going to go see the latest Batman film. I'm going to go see the latest Avengers film because I like the characters. What they've done recently is started changing all these characters to meet DEI objectives. They're checking boxes. It's no longer about writing a script and telling an amazing story. It's about how can we modify these characters and these stories to meet a specific agenda. And I think as a fan base, a lot of fans have got tired of this and they've given up on the industry. So the box office is slipping. People aren't going to see movies. Because you know what, the way I look at it, I don't care if you want to make a film that has an agenda. And everyone has a right to. If you want to make a film with a gay superhero, you want to make a film with a trans superhero, by all means, do it. There's no reason you can't do it. And you should be allowed to do it, entitled to do it. But when you try and confiscate an existing IP because you can't make a compelling character or write a story that's going to intrigue fans enough to come see it, and instead you decide, okay, well, we need a gay character, let's turn Robin gay from Batman and Robin. Well, what you've done is you've taken an IP, and instead of making your own IP or making your own original content, you're basically alienating all the fans of the IP that have been reading the comics, watching the shows, seeing the movies over generations. And now you've upset them, and now they're, the studios are looking at it and going, wow, the latest She-Hulk didn't do good, or the latest Batman movie didn't do good, the latest Aquaman film didn't do good, the latest Flash film didn't do good. And it's not because people don't want to see it. They don't want to see what you're doing to the titles. They don't want to see what you're doing to their favorite characters. They don't want to see what you're doing to their IPs. And again, if you have a compelling story, you want to write a great story that involves a specific gender or type of character, do it. Do it. And if you have the audience that will want to see that content, they will come out and see it. But relegating the existing IP and existing characters and manipulating them to become more conforming to what you think this should be is not the way to get an existing fan base to follow you along. In 2023, Warner Brothers Discovery had Barbie, the movie, generate the most revenue for the studio out of all the films they make. Although they owned the IP for DC Comics and had films like The Flash and Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom come out, both films failed at the box office. And a lot of this is not due to fans not wanting to go see the movies. It's due to the fans being alienated by the studios and the stories being lackluster. So the talent that was screenwriting, talent that was filmmaking, has converted to social messaging. And they've basically said that the fans of the IP, the DC fans, the comic book fans, the people that actually go to the theaters to watch these films don't matter. And we should be talked down to, and rather than getting a good story, we get a message. Here's an example of Disney, who has a lot of great IP, has lost over 1.3 million subscribers because they've decided to raise the price of their streaming service because they can't make compelling content that has subscribers signing up or retain their subscribers because their subscribers just get tired of seeing garbage over and over again. So they're canceling their subscriptions. So what does Disney do? Instead of making better content, they raise the prices to squeeze every nickel out of the existing subscribers they still have. Indiana Jones is another great example. So they've been trying to bring back Harrison Ford just for name recognition and somehow figure a way to transition that IP over to a new actor to continue making this series of films. Unfortunately, the films have been terrible of late. There is no storytelling. And the latest one cost almost $300 million. Now in 2023, domestically, internationally, and worldwide, it only made $383 million. That's not counting for the marketing budget. So sadly, these films are bombing left and right. And it's just another good example of when you give up on storytelling, people that have enjoyed the series or enjoyed the characters want to continue to see. And that's reflecting on the box office. So it really comes down to people, I guess, become fed up with a lot of what's happening in film and Hollywood these days. And they've done it to themselves. They've really, created their own mess. It's sort of amazing how studios spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to make these films with no script and a bunch of no-talent Gregs. Instead, they go through their checklist to make sure they hit all the DEI checkpoints. Now, the fans have got tired of this, so they're not going to the theaters. And you can understand why. An average theater ticket per one person is between $14 and $18 a seat. With a popcorn and a drink, you're another $20 to $25. So you're roughly at $40 to $45 for a single person to go to a movie. Now, if you take a date where you go in a group, you're well into the $70s to $100 for a 2-hour experience. Now, back in the day, the films were compelling, they were good. People go see them, and they would escape for a couple hours. Now you go to a film, and you're not escaping anything. Rather, you're being preached to and talked to and explained to on why things need to be a certain way. And it's not unbelievable when the last few films that have actually done well in the box office have been either remakes of previous films where they don't really have to have any creative sense or understanding. They just remake a movie that already exists that did well before, so they do it again. It's currently run by people that, well, at the executive level, you have the executives that are just focused on EBITDA and revenue growth and how much money the films are making. So they don't actually have any creative sense to them. They just want to make sure the studio is making money for their shareholders. So these people hire people beneath them that are in charge of making or finding content and hiring people to make good content. Unfortunately, those people don't really have any idea what they're doing, and they're hiring either, you know, based on family friends, nepotism, and in the end this comes down to movies being lackluster and rather unwatchable. So far this year, Dune and the upcoming Deadpool Wolverine movie are the only ones that I'm even slightly interested in seeing. Everything else so far has been kind of, I wouldn't even bother wasting my money to watch it on a streaming service after it's released. Now, to be fair, Amazon has had some good products lately. The Fallout TV show is very good. And I think that a lot of that had to do with the fact that it was based on a video game. Jonathan Nolan has a history of making at least the first season of shows very good. Now, he does take a couple years in between seasons because he wants to make sure the following seasons are as strong as the first season. But he's not also, conforming to what Hollywood is trying to push as far as his agenda. It's kind of amazing to see this because David Mamet calls Hollywood DEI initiatives garbage and says his kids are not Nepo babies. They earned it by merit. And I tend to believe him. But a Nepo baby is basically a nepotism baby. So what this is somebody whose family's been in the industry for decades, if not generations, and they don't work at the company that their family has, but they somehow get pushed off onto other studios or other post-production houses where they get jobs there, not because they have any talent or capability, but because they're connected. And these people are the ones I call no-talent Gregs. They lurk around the office, they listen to other people's ideas, and then when no one's around, they go and pitch the idea as if it's their own and take credit for it. And that's how they grow in the industry, and they think this is all right. And they've been doing it for so long that Hollywood is kind of festering with this type of attitude and personality to the point where nobody in Hollywood has talent anymore, except for a limited few. And when you have 70-80% of your creative base without an original idea or ability to tell a story, and they're essentially without talent, you end up getting garbage film after garbage film after garbage film to the point where nobody's seeing your garbage films. And then they're surprised. I think the only ones surprised that Hollywood is failing are the Hollywood executives and the people at the studios. Why aren't people seeing our movies? It's because you put out garbage repeatedly. The first time it happens, people will chalk it up to, okay, that movie was a stinker. But if it's disaster film after disaster after disaster, it's not about a single movie being a stinker. It's about every movie being absolute garbage. And I think what he's saying here is actually refreshing to see because it kind of sums up, I think, what people in general are starting to feel. And I think it's warranted, and I think it's a good thing that it's happening. Maybe it'll be a wake-up call they need. Maybe the studios will wake up and get better at this. But we'll see. We'll see.